Okay, so now we move on to the code editor window. Basically, this window is where you will be writing all your code. And when will you be writing code? Well, mostly when you want some control to perform some kind of an event. Like you want the exit button to actually exit the application when you click on it. So you'll be specifying with your code like when the event happens, like if you click once, or if you click, or if you double click, or if you have a scroll bar control, you want to make sure when you scroll through it only then it responds, stuff like that. So event procedure is where you'll be entering the events one by one. So it basically refers to when you have a set of events happening when you click something or you do perform some action on a control on the form you have designed. So this procedure code tells the object how to respond when some sort of event happens on it, some sort of action is taken on it. So that's where the code editor comes in. Basically, this place where you do all your programming stuff. So this is a very simple picture of the code editor, some labeling. You can see the class statement is basically every object, as I mentioned before, has a class. Here, this code window is showing basically a blank form with with the name main form and a blank class. So the class always ends with public and sorry, begins with public and ends with end class. And in between this blank space is all the coding and object, all the codes for that is already given. Some of the coding Visual Basic will do by itself, and the rest, the more advanced ones, you have to enter the coding in these spaces. Um, the class name listbox, there's a drop down arrow here which will have the codes for every type of object within the form. So you can go to whichever object you want to and then change the code there. And this method name list box is basically the methods or events associated with the object you're currently looking at. So before moving on to the next slide, let me just go to Visual Basic, and this is the code editor window for this form I was designing earlier with you guys. So you see the public class, end class. This is the list box. So it has the test form, the button, and the picture box. So each object has its own um, code, basically. Um, this is the main code, having that of the button, and the picture hasn't been given any codes yet. But you can see that each object has the method name associated. Basically, this will do something when you click on it, and this has not been defined yet. So going back to the PowerPoint. So, and when you write your code, you always have to make sure that you're writing in a language which the computer understands, not necessarily how you understand it. So when you want to close something, you don't just type in close this. There's a certain pattern how you should type it so that the computer understands this. And that is called syntax, which is basically rules of the language. And there are certain keywords like if, when, else, while. These are like decision statements. So like these are specifically for some sort of event, how to deal with that event, stuff like that. So these are words which are reserved by the Visual Basic application for a certain type of use. So if you want to name an object with like if, when, which I'm probably sure you're not going to, but if you do that and try to run the program, then the program will yell back at you like, no, we have we have some rules, you're not following these rules. So make sure you know all the keywords. We'll go through each of the keywords through this class so that you know. And sub procedure is basically the codes for the objects within the form. It generally starts with private sub and ends with end sub, and these include some basic codes like here you see the code or procedure for the button. It has some syntax like button click, meaning that it'll operate as a click. It will perform some action when clicked on, and other stuff here called handles, which we'll come back to later on. So that's about it for the code editor window description.